She heard Kenneth calling her. Tammy was panicking. Kenneth was saying, "Mummy, Mummy." It was faint. Then Kenneth was just saying, "Mum." There was something seriously wrong. His face was a grey, ashen colour, and he wasn't breathing.
Good evening, welcome to Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robart. Tonight, when a child dies under suspicious circumstances, the justice system is designed to kick into high gear, to seek out and punish those who have preyed on the most innocent of victims. But what if you are the parent charged with murdering your own flesh and blood? Here now is Mark Carcasole with Make Him Breathe.
So here we are.
Yeah, it's been at least since 2022 since I've been here.
Still stirs up a lot of emotion for you, I take it?
A lot. It says, "On angels' wings we were taken away, but in our hearts you will always stay. In loving memory of Kenneth D. Wynne Marquardt, May 18th, 1991 to October 12th, 1993.
In 1993, Tammy Wynne Marquardt was 21 years old and living in an apartment in Oshawa, just east of Toronto, on the shores of Lake Ontario. She was a new mom. She didn't have much, but she did her best to raise her 2-year-old son, Kenneth.
He would love the Tickle Monster. His favorite cartoon was Darkwing Duck. And I'd always go, "ATW, what you doing?" And now his name is Kenneth Donald Wynne. Then he thought that was just funny. You could not call him Ken or Kenny because little Mr. Attitude, it's Kenneth. And he would really pronunciate the th.
Tammy was no longer with Kenneth's father, but was newly married to a man named Rick Marquardt.
I'm not sure how typical my motherhood was. Ricky, my husband at the time, him and I were on again, off again over the years. During one of the off times, he got another girl pregnant. And I told her, when you go into labor, let me know. I will make sure he's at least at the hospital.
It was October 9th when she got the call.
We've never really been one for goodbyes, but on this day, when he was leaving to go to the hospital, he said goodbye to Kenneth.
Tammy was left alone with her son, and soon it was time for Kenneth's afternoon nap.
Instead of just putting him in the bed at first, I laid him with me out on the couch. Once he was asleep, I picked him up and I brought him into the spare bed in my room, tucked him in, and then went back to the living room, waiting for a phone call. Okay, did she have the baby? What is it? And whatnot. Just waiting for the phone call. I ended up falling asleep.
Around 4 p.m., Tammy woke up and went to the bathroom.
I regret I didn't stop and look in on Kenneth before going to the bathroom.
She heard Kenneth calling her. It was muffled, but it sounded like, "Mummy, Mummy."
We had a teddy bear and I would put it over my face and I'd go, "Kenneth," and then boo. And he would do the same thing, take the teddy bear, "Mommy," and then boo. Well, I heard the "mommy," and yes, it sounded muffled. I thought, he's got the teddy bear because I had it beside him in the bed. Not thinking anything of it, because at first he didn't sound like he was freaking out or anything.
Tammy called back that she'd be there soon and finished in the bathroom.
I couldn't tell you how long I was in the bathroom. I walked into the bedroom, and that's when I saw he was twisted in the sheets.
His head was at the foot of the bed and all twisted up in the sheets down to his chest, and it was hard to get the sheets off him.
Now, I always did hospital corners, and the hospital corner was holding all right.
Tammy was panicking. Kenneth was saying, "Mummy, Mummy," and she was saying, "Mummy's here, it's okay, Mummy's going to get you out." Then Kenneth was just saying, "Mum." It was faint, and at this point she realized that there was something seriously wrong.
When I got him, When I got him out of the sheets, he wasn't the right color. Before I got him out of the sheets, the last thing I heard was, "Mom." His lips weren't the right color. I picked him up. He was like a rag doll.
Kenneth was white and he did not seem to be breathing. Tammy ran with him in her arms to the phone.
I called 911. 911, please hold. They had to try to tell me how to do CPR.
She tried to follow the 911 CPR instructions, but was unable to. Why not? And she said, because I could hardly breathe myself. Well, what do you mean you could hardly breathe yourself? I was crying a lot and really upset.
I had my CPR training. I couldn't do a damn thing. I remember the ambulance coming in, and I just kept yelling at them, "Make him breathe, make him breathe."
Emergency workers arrived at the apartment at 4:42 in the afternoon, within 5 minutes of the call. Tammy was visibly distraught. She directed them to Kenneth. He was lying motionless on a couch, to which she had already moved him. His face was a grey, ashen colour, and he wasn't breathing. Efforts at resuscitation at the apartment failed, and Kenneth was transported immediately to Oshawa General Hospital.
In the ambulance, they made me sit in the front. The whole time, I just remember yelling at them, "Make him breathe. Is he breathing? Make him breathe." And then at the hospital, I was put in some room, questioned by what felt like millions of people. I just wanted to know, is my son okay? Is he breathing? What happened?
Kenneth needed more specialized help. He had to be moved to the hospital for sick children, a little less than an hour away in downtown Toronto.
And the police offered to take me. Not knowing where my husband was at the time, I said, okay. I thought we were just gonna follow the ambulance and go to sick kids. They lied to me. Instead of letting me go to the hospital with my son, they took me in for questioning.
Welcome back. It was 1993, and Tammy Wynne Marquardt was working hard to care for her 2-year-old son, Kenneth. Then one afternoon, Tammy says she put him down for a nap, only to later discover he'd become twisted in the sheets and had stopped breathing. With Kenneth now fighting for his life, it wasn't just the doctors asking Tammy questions. The police had been called in. Here again is Mark Carcasole with Make Him Breathe.
What sorts of things were they asking you? Do you remember?
Honestly, it's quite a blur. I do remember asking, what's the fastest way I can do this? Because I want to get to the hospital. I want to be with my son. Like I wasn't questioned enough at the hospital by everybody. They kept saying it was to help him. I felt so alone.
When we interviewed Tammy, she told us that day police lied to her. They offered to give her a lift to Sick Kids Hospital to be with her son, when in fact she was brought in for questioning and was not taken to the hospital to be with her son. Did she tell you about that?
Yes.
And what were your thoughts?
It's not the first time I've seen that happen. Their job, I suppose, makes them look for a homicide. They like to catch people vulnerable when they can. They're more likely to talk. They're also more likely to make mistakes. Even if they do think dirty, you don't take a mother away from her child who's in a coma.
When you got to the hospital, what was Kenneth's status?
He was hooked up to all these machines. They told me his brain was swelling.
Because of how long Kenneth had been unconscious, it seemed like there was brain damage.
There was nothing I could do. I think that was one of the hardest things. The staff at Sick Kids tell me to go lay down and get some sleep.
Kenneth was on life support, but it would not be enough to save him, and eventually, he was taken off.
I thought I was dreaming, that the nurse had woke me up saying Kenneth had taken a turn for the worse. I thought, no, it's a dream, this isn't real, this isn't happening.
Kenneth died 3 days after being admitted to hospital. He was just 2.5 years old. As the only person with Kenneth at the time of the incident, Tammy was under suspicion.
I think people just have a hard time with her story. They don't really understand why he died under those circumstances.
About a month and a half or so after, I was at home in Oshawa at the time, and there was a knock at the door. My husband got up, answered it, and that was my lovely rude awakening. You are being charged with second-degree murder.
In 1995, charged with the second-degree murder of her toddler, Kenneth, Tammy Wynne Marquardt was on trial.
In her affidavit, she describes the passage of time. She said, "When the police later asked me how long this all took, I said about 20 minutes.
That actually becomes a point in the investigation, is why did it take you so long to free this child, right? How hard can it be to free a child from a bunch of, blankets?
The digital clock read 4:33 p.m.
For some reason, I noticed the clock in the bedroom said 4:33. I later came to know that the 911 call was made at 4:38, so my time estimate was off. I mean, the 20-minute evidence was always going to be highly suspect. It seemed like 20 minutes to Tammy. In the situation she was in, I'm surprised it didn't seem like 2 hours.
The Crown had, everybody, I swear, get on the stand against me.
Chief among them, Dr. Charles Smith. In 1992, he was appointed as the head of the forensic pathology unit at Toronto's Sick Kids Hospital, the hospital where Kenneth died. Smith, seen as the best in Canada at what he did, had conducted the 2-year-old's autopsy.
She was a suspect because they didn't know the cause of death. That's fair enough. But it wasn't till Charles Smith gave his opinions that they charged her. The problem became Charles Smith, who then made it a homicide.
He was classified as the god of pathology, and my lawyers couldn't get anybody to go against him.
He was probably the most well-respected voice in trying to answer that question of when children die under circumstances that aren't easily explained. He's brought in to do the autopsy to try to provide the answers as to why this child died.
What evidence did he present against you? What did he say you did to your son?
See, there was a lot of, she may have used a plastic bag or garment bag, maybe a pillow to suffocate him. Okay, let's think logically. Use a pillow, there's gonna be bruising. You'd see it. Or she possibly used her hand on his neck. Bruising.
He very much saw himself as a part of the police investigation or the prosecution team. He felt he was part of the team that was building a case against the suspect. And it was easy to kind of make the leap that she may have played a part in this young child's death.
Charles Smith's opinions were basically dependent on some very small hemorrhages called pinpoint hemorrhages that he found inside Kenneth's head and in Kenneth's neck, and suggested that they were indicative of Kenneth's breath being cut off by means of smothering or strangulation, and that he died as a consequence. In other words, his airway was cut off, causing him to die, and his airway cut off by a third party. Tammy was with Kenneth, and she alone was with Kenneth when he went into a coma. So inevitably, Tammy had to be the one who caused the homicide.
I brought with me today something I had found that I never thought I would see again. In going through some boxes at my house, I came across this. Right there, he was writing love. You can see the L-O-V-E. Every letter, he'd write the K, and he'd go K, write the E, E. I remember sitting on the floor with him and watching him do this, and just to see the last thing Kenneth actually drew. I wasn't quite sure how to be a mom. I just knew I didn't want to be the mom that my mom was. While I was pregnant with Kenneth, I put myself in the pregnancy and aftercare program with the Children's Aid. They don't really tell you how exhausting breastfeeding can really be. So I called my Children's Aid worker and said, look, I'm literally falling asleep with him in my arms. I'm afraid he's going to get hurt. Like, how do I know? He could fall out of my lap. That eventually got used against me in court, which makes me wonder, why did I bother to ask for help?
At trial, the Crown cited evidence gathered from some of these social workers about statements Tammy allegedly made to them, saying, quote, that she occasionally experienced blackouts, that Kenneth was difficult to soothe. She imagined putting her arms around his neck and placing her hand over his mouth to stop him from crying. Tammy testified at trial that she was, quote, only expressing fears that she might unintentionally mishandle Kenneth arising from her exhaustion in caring for him. According to court documents, Tammy requested that Kenneth be temporarily placed in foster care because, quote, she was under stress and was worried she might hurt Kenneth. Tammy says she was temporarily homeless at the time and staying in a friend's basement. She wanted Children's Aid to take Kenneth until she'd sorted out her housing situation. She says they refused, and in an effort to change their minds, she, quote, figured if I tell them I'm afraid he'll get hurt, then they would have to help me.
So you did take the stand in your trial.
I did.
What was that like?
Feeling like you're being picked apart by vultures while you're still alive.
That was one of the things that impressed me about Tammy, actually, that she saw the triggers, that she realized she needed help, and that, you know, she didn't want to do anything untoward in raising her son. To me, that's showing maturity, and she got penalized for it.
She was stigmatized from the very beginning. She was a young mother, an indigenous heritage. She was clearly of a low income. If she had been, dare I say, a middle-class white woman who called in, do I think she'd have been treated the same way? Not for a moment.
Smith, he took my childhood, so to speak, into consideration. The police, they had told him I come from the projects, single-parent home, on welfare.
Tammy had the opportunity to take a plea deal, but refused.
The Crown had said, if you plead guilty to manslaughter, we'll give you 5 years. And I said no, because I didn't do it. I'm not pleading to something I haven't done. So because I fought them on it, I end up getting life 10 for second-degree murder. Guilty, guilty, guilty. To hear each jury member, it's like whack-a-mole, just whacking you down every time you hear it. They always say the truth will set you free. Well, I was telling the truth, and the truth got me a life sentence. In the pen, I was labeled a baby killer, which is basically one of the lowest of the low that you can be inside.
Fearing for her safety, Tammy was moved, keeping notorious company.
Who do I happen to see bouncing down the stairs while I'm sitting in this cell? But Carla Homolka. And these are the people you're allowed to associate with. The only people I had to talk to.
A little over 2 years into her conviction, Tammy's appeal was unanimously denied. So was her application for legal aid funding to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Was there ever a moment where you gave up?
Yes. 1998, I attempted suicide. I felt I had nothing left to live for. Didn't matter what I did or what I said. No one was going to believe me anyways. So it's just easier to give up. Later, I found out that if the guard had not come back to check on me, within a half hour, they would have been pulling out their very first body bag.
To save her life, Tammy chose to learn more about it.
I joined Native Sisterhood, getting to know a little bit more about my culture. My mother used to call me the dirtiest, whitest around. I don't know why I have a tear running down my face.
It seemed like no one would ever believe her story, that she'd spend the rest of her life in prison. But then, a glimmer of hope emerged.
Charles Smith was Ontario's forensic pediatric pathologist for well over a decade. But now every homicide case he handled will be reviewed by a team of independent experts.
She'd soon learn she was one of several parents or caregivers in Ontario who, over the span of a decade, had their lives turned upside down by the work of Charles Smith. Mothers like Brenda Wadby of Peterborough.
It's been an experience. It's been a journey that you couldn't wish on any parent.
There was also William Mullins Johnson, wrongly convicted of raping and murdering his 4-year-old niece in 1993.
I hope that my family comes to understand. I hope they understand that nothing was done to my niece.
At the original trial, experts testified that the little girl had been sodomized and strangled, but new evidence shows she died of natural causes.
Like Kenneth's, the autopsies in these cases had been conducted by Charles Smith. They were among 45 cases Smith had worked on that were put under provincial review in 2005.
The review does not mean that every one of the cases was necessarily mismanaged, but given the enormous doubts now about Smith's competence, every one of those cases will now be meticulously scrutinized.
A couple years earlier, James Lockyer and his colleagues at the Association in Defense of the Wrongly Convicted, now known as Innocence Canada, started raising questions about Smith's work.
We were quickly able to see what you might almost call a modus operandi, an MO, on the part of Smith, where he was turning natural cause deaths into homicides.
It wasn't until 2007 that a public inquiry was announced, after 20 of Smith's cases were found to have had problems.
This is not supposed to happen. It should not have happened. It's unacceptable that it happened. It's wrong. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Ontario's then Attorney General Michael Bryant had decided upon veteran Court of Appeal Judge Stephen Gouge to lead the provincial inquiry. From November 2007 into early 2008, the inquiry heard from victims who suffered due to Smith's work and the experts who reviewed it.
You have to understand as a pathologist that even if there is strong circumstantial evidence for foul play, it's not our job to then come up with a cause of death that fits into that narrative.
Dr. Christopher Milroy was involved in the review, which included examining Kenneth's autopsy findings.
Yes, there were preconceived views on what the cause of death would be. He had a default diagnosis of asphyxia. It literally means an absence of the pulse. That's its Greek origin. But of course, it can mean to people that there was some deliberate interference to stop their breathing. Now, the evidence was equivocal. In other words, you could not say that the child had been smothered, nor could you exclude it. And the cause of death in the child's case should have been recorded as undetermined.
We were convinced that Kenneth had died from epilepsy. So we now had 3 international experts all saying that the cause of Kenneth's death could not be determined on the one hand, but on the other hand, that it could well have been as a result of a sudden unexpected death in epilepsy, known as SUDEP.
Kenneth had a documented history of being hospitalized due to seizures, but at the original trial in 1995, an expert from Sick Kids Hospital testified that Kenneth did not have epilepsy. Now 2 different Sick Kids doctors would go on the record concluding that he did.
And that was really definitive of the case. He grabbed the bedclothes around him as part of that seizure. That's why the bedclothes were wrapped around him. And it was consistent with the descriptions of what happened to him that Tammy gave that day that he went into a coma.
Dr. Charles Smith arrived at the hearing, the scrutiny enormous.
I am here to take full responsibility. I have come to appreciate mistakes that I made, and I am sorry for them. I realize now just how profoundly ignorant I was.
Smith said his judgment was sometimes wrong or colored by suspicion, but denies ever carrying out any kind of reckless agenda. He instead blamed his training, which he called woefully inadequate, and also admitted he was disorganized and a lifelong procrastinator.
I mean, some of his mistakes were pretty outrageous.
There were some cases where Mr. Smith did get it right. And do you think maybe that led to his longevity?
That's a difficult question to answer, because at the time, people thought he got it always right. If you give someone a bunch of cases, he's bound to get some right.
These words, chief forensic pathologist, they just sound so official and scientific. There's something about it that is, very colonial in the way in which authorities look to other authorities and presume those authorities to be truth tellers and presume anyone challenging them to be troublemakers. And of course, a lot of prosecutors and police and judges had staked their reputations on Smith's reputation.
Most doctors don't want to have anything to do with the court systems. Smith volunteered, and he was then promoted by people who did not understand forensic pathology. And so the deaths became concentrated in the hands of Smith. But the irony was he was not a forensic pathologist, because if he'd been qualified and trained properly and placed within a correct system, this would never have happened.
With the victims of disgraced pathologist Charles Smith listening intently, Justice Stephen Gouge calls for sweeping changes to the forensic pathology system.
When the pathology is flawed, or there is a failure of the oversight required to ensure its quality, the consequences are devastating. Sadly, in the years I examined, both occurred in Ontario.
Gouge made 169 recommendations, including better training and funding for forensic pathologists, improving the complaints process, and an overhaul in the way the coroner's office oversees pathologists.
One of the problems was there was no real peer review system. And now everyone in our system is subject to peer review by somebody.
You can't undo the past, but you can certainly make the future better, and that's what he's done.
Justice Gouge placed the blame for the oversight failure squarely on the shoulders of former Ontario Chief Coroner Dr. James Young, saying that when he did act, it was to protect the reputation of the office, not the public interest.
It is my promise, particularly to those so terribly affected by these actions and events, that I will do everything within my power to ensure the lessons of the past do not go unheeded.
He also promised to compensate those whose lives have been destroyed by Dr. Smith.
Tammy wasn't able to be there with Smith's other victims on October 1st, 2008. She was still in prison. She wasn't released until March 2009, almost 14 years into her sentence, when Lockyer's team successfully filed a leave to appeal to the Supreme Court.
Suddenly have these people in my life that, you believe me, oh my God, somebody, finally.
The wide smile and deep breath says it all. Tammy Marquardt is out of jail and eager to be taking the first steps towards clearing her name.
When I first stepped out the doors, I looked up in the sky and I took a big breath and I closed my eyes and just exhaled, just free air, so to speak.
Today I finally have my day. This is my day. I'm out.
Now, one day after her 37th birthday, the last parent convicted based on the testimony of disgraced pathologist Dr. Charles Smith wants justice.
I really hope that it can change from this. I hope the justice system has learned something, and I hope that things can improve.
Thoughts looking back on that footage?
Wow, just seeing it from this perspective, I never thought of myself as being pretty. And yet I look at these and it's like, I am pretty. I'm not as ugly as I always thought I was.
Tell us how you feel.
Thanks, okay?
Amazing.
2 years later, Ontario's Court of Appeal threw out Tammy's conviction, ordering a new trial. The Crown then withdrew all charges against Tammy, granting her freedom, but not an outright acquittal.
I believe all wrongly convicted people, all people that I personally believe are innocent, deserve to be acquitted. They deserve to come out of prison identified as innocent, which is the way they went in. We don't give them what they deserve. And I really think it's cowardly.
When I first came out of the pen, the first job I got, with my very first paycheck, I decided to get this tattoo that says freedom. I'm not stuck in that cage anymore. You know, just being out here in nature and seeing the birds now.
But after almost 14 years behind bars, Tammy was freed to soar into an unfamiliar world.
Now you got cell phones that aren't bricks, that have like a million different things in them. I remember when I first came out, I can't remember the question I asked, but somebody said, well, just Google it. Well, what's a Google?
The sudden change was a lot to handle when combined with everything she'd been through. To ease the anxiety, Tammy turned to drugs.
Not proud of it, not one bit. I started doing crack cocaine. The guy I was seeing at the time, he was doing it. I see when you do this stuff, you go. I was trying to make this all stop.
The day Tammy was granted an appeal and freed, she made a public appeal of her own outside the courthouse to her 2 sons put up for adoption, something many members of the public didn't know about.
One day I know that my boys are going to want to find me, so they'll hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Tammy's second son, Keith, was born while she was on bail at a facility for vulnerable pregnant women, awaiting trial in Kenneth's death. She became pregnant with her third son, Eric, shortly afterward, giving birth to him in prison.
They go in, they do these tests, you're pregnant. I laughed, I'm like, I can't be pregnant because the guy I was dating while I was on bail, I put the condom on him, I took the condom off, and I was on birth control pills at the time. So I'm not pregnant, and sure enough, I was pregnant. When I was asked about having him put up for adoption, I said the only way my boys are being put up for adoption is if they are together.
Marquardt's 2 other sons, now 12 and 14, were put up for adoption. They have no idea who she is, and she has no idea where they are. In time, she hopes that will change.
The most important thing for her on the steps outside the courthouse was getting the message out, because maybe, hopefully, her kids or the adoptive parents might have been watching, that she would love to be a part of their lives, and she hoped that they would reach out to her so she could become whole again.
Welcome back. Convicted of murdering her 2-year-old son, Kenneth, Tammy Wynne Marquardt spent nearly 14 years in prison before the charges against her were finally withdrawn, in large part because of the damning testimony of disgraced pathologist Charles Smith. Now, when Tammy was freed, she made an appeal of her own for her 2 other sons, put up for adoption as babies, to come find her. We now return to Mark Carcasole with the conclusion of Make Him Breathe.
When did you find out that you were adopted?
It was a very young age, but there were still always like what if questions, right? So it's like, well, yeah, I know I'm adopted, but why?
It just really struck home for me about how the ripple effect of these type of miscarriages of justice, it really spreads far. Keith had found what he was looking for, his adoption papers. His mother's name was Tammy Marquardt, but as he read on, another name kept popping up, Kenneth. Then he saw something that dropped him down into his father's chair. Keith kept repeating that his mother was a murderer.
At first I was really confused. I was, I was shocked, of course, being branded a child killer. Like I was going through a whole bunch of emotions, and then nah, I don't want to read the rest, but then I did, and I'm glad I did, because you can't really take things for face value. You gotta dig deeper.
The day that she was exonerated, she stood before a bunch of reporters and she said to them, I hope my sons find me.
So they'll hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Well, her wish came true. Eventually I found her.
How's it going? Good. Oh, missed you.
You too.
Soon after learning about Tammy, Keith went searching for her.
I didn't know how I was gonna do it, but Facebook was a thing at the time.
Yeah.
Trying to get a motor for the canoe.
Oh, cool. He had contacted me through my boyfriend at the time.
And there's a few people with the same names, so I just sent them all a bunch of messages. Hey, this is me. Are you this person?
I was still new to this internet thing, and a message had come up to him, and I remember my boyfriend asking, do you know Keith? And I'm like, no, but the only Keith I know is my son, but I haven't seen him since he was a baby, since he was just a little over a year old. I was excited. We agreed that, you'd take the GO train and that. I didn't know what you even looked like.
No beard yet.
Right. And then as you got closer, it was like, oh my God, that is him.
Yeah, we hugged. It lasted a while.
And just that feeling, this is my baby. He's not a baby anymore. He's huge.
It was probably awkward silence for a little bit. It was hard to listen to, I guess, because I couldn't imagine doing 14 years in prison. But a few weeks from then, we did spend a weekend or something at her place. I brought my brother along. Not everything was answered overnight, right? Like, there's still things that I'm learning about her and about myself.
I didn't help that during this time, I was still in my addiction. The drugs, I just continued to allow myself to lose out on life. And I couldn't tell you how long I've been clean now for, but that's in that poem. It's called I Wasn't Ready. It's a hard road to be on, either side. Been clean from drugs, crack cocaine addiction now for 5 years, 6 months, and I don't quite have the days at this point, and counting. I had lots of people that wanted to help me. I wasn't ready. I'm scared. This is new. I like this. I'm starting to love me, embracing my inner child. My poetry for me comes to me. Sometimes when I'm out in the woods, I'll bring one of my journals with me, and I'll sit there and I'll just put pen to paper. Right now I'm trying to catch the birds from the trees. They keep ducking in behind the trees there, so I can't quite capture them. Yeah, I've always loved nature. Always found my peace there.
Had you heard about Charles Smith before you found out about Tammy's story?
No, I didn't. And when I heard about that, I tried to find him like I found Tammy.
After the tone, please record your message.
Hi there, my name is Mark Carcasole. I'm a reporter with Crime Beat.
Charles Smith's last reported location was somewhere in British Columbia. We reached out to him for an interview through multiple contacts.
I'm hoping I can speak to you about Charles Smith. We're doing a story about him, and I'm wondering if you might be able to help me arrange to speak to him. If you or Mr. Smith could give us a call back, we would really appreciate it.
But never received a single reply.
Yeah, Smith. Hopefully karma will get at him, but as far as I'm concerned, he's still living a decent life.
If you had any words for Charles Smith today, what would they be?
Simple. Why? But it's not just him I want to ask. I just feel like he's not the only one. Because the way I see it, yeah, everyone's busy blaming him and kind of forgetting about all the other people, his superiors, those who hired him, the court system in and of itself, police, the doctors in the hospital. Have somebody rip your heart out and hold it in front of your face and just have them squeeze the life out of it. For me personally, there isn't an apology strong enough to bring back the years I've lost, to bring my son back, to bring my family back together.
The system failed them, and we need to retell the story again and again. We need to apologize again and again. I am deeply sorry for all the hell that those folks and their families went through. And I accept that that's cold comfort to them.
The gouge inquiry only looked at a particular period in Dr. Smith's career, sort of a decade period. And we at Innocence Canada have 3 others that we're still working on. They were not caught by the gouge inquiry, so it's not even over yet. We're still trying to clean up the mess.
Charles Smith was never charged with anything. He was able to go off and disappear in life and do whatever he's doing now. Why?
I've never been able to think about what he could have been charged with. I mean, he didn't really commit something that we would call a crime, unless you could prove, and you can't prove, that he purposely lied, and I don't happen to believe that he did. I think he was infused with his own ego and loved the attention he got. That's not a crime.
He's lost his title of doctor, and he's lost his ability to work in the medical field, and that's about the best we're ever going to get out of it.
My biggest regret, where I feel my guilt lies, I had all that CPR training and I'd failed. And because I couldn't remember one thing, my son died. I was supposed to save him, and I didn't.
It would be nice if Tammy could be convinced in her own mind that she had nothing to do with Kenneth's death. She did nothing wrong. What she did or didn't do that day, that's not her fault. It's nothing to do with her.
My biggest fear is that my brain is going to suck me back there and I'm not going to be able to come back here anymore. I carry my marbles because I sometimes feel like I'm losing my marbles. So as long as you got them, you're still good, right? Sometimes I see someone having a hard time or a bad day. I'm like, here, take a marble.
She gave me one. She said something about the marbles. I said, oh, I lost mine a long time ago. She said, here's some marbles. I said, thank you. The other word I would use to describe her is resilience, because she didn't give up. It takes courage. It takes willpower. She's really a role model.
I will, yes, I will.
The gift that you can give me is to enjoy the rest of your life, have peace and love. You know, that's the gift. It's a humbling experience to be involved with people like Tammy.
In all the stories that have been told about your situation with the justice system over the years, do you feel as though Kenneth has sort of been lost in the shuffle?
I do feel that people have been more focused on the wrong that had happened and not so much the life that was here. Although short-lived, he was still a human being. There was still life, and kind of like I feel like a lot of people have forgotten him. And I can't.
His birthday's coming up, right?
Saturday. He would have been 33 years old.
You gotta take a little hike to get up to the point, so.
I try to imagine what he'd be like at 33, especially now that I see Keith.
I was a bit nervous, but again, I was happy, so.
Sometimes the grief can get so bad that I swear he's right there, and I will see him and talk to him like I'm talking to you. His first Christmas, I bought him diamond earrings, and I got his left ear pierced. When he passed, I took one and I put the other one with him, because when you buy earrings, you get a pair. So he got one, Mom kept the other one, which I always keep on me.
So you've been wearing that same earring for 33 years?
Yeah.
Wow. You two are eternally connected in that way.
Yes. He was a beautiful ball of energy.
Thanks for letting me be here with you.
And Kenneth.
And Kenneth.
Tammy continues trying to find peace in her new life. After her release, she also welcomed a little girl into the world, Tiffany, whose name is an acronym, which stands for Tammy is finally free after numerous years. Tammy remains a vocal supporter of Innocence Canada, marking Wrongful Conviction Day every October 2nd, helping inspire others still fighting for their freedom. I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat. Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast, now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, go to the Global TV app, visit globaltv.com, or check out our Crime Beat YouTube page.